You are listening to Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck. I'm
And I'm
Alanna.
Kelsey.
This is episode 2 of Castles and Cryptids, and we are going today to Canadian true crime.
Yeah,
What, what?
couple of Canadian girls sharing some Canadian true crime.
Up north, don't you know?
Yeah, how about it? How about today?
Or I'm going east with mine.
Mine's
But
west.
okay, that makes sense. We're going to like kind of the hometown
Yeah,
murder, or as my favorite murder would say.
yeah, yeah, mine's
I
far
like it.
west.
I like it. How far?
Yeah,
BC? Okay. That's British Columbia for those
yeah,
of you.
some
No, I'm kidding.
geography. Throw some geography at you.
Oh, geography. Sounds good.
Yeah. So I will be
All
going
right.
first this week, as mine's a little bit
Yeah.
shorter.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, not too short though. But I am covering Gilbert Paul Jordan. He has two nicknames, so his crimes are called the alcohol murders, and he has also been called the boozing barber.
Oh no.
Not great.
Okay.
So this is,
The alcohol
yeah.
murders.
So
From lack thereof alcohol.
no, an abundance of
Uh,
alcohol.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, too much alcohol.
Me likey.
All right, so just a quick overview here. He is attributed to have approximately between 8 and 10 victims, and murders took
Okay.
place.
Serial
Yeah,
killer.
he's a serial killer. The murders took place from 1965 to 1987. So,
Oh, that's before we were
yeah,
born.
a little bit of back in the history. Not too far, though.
That's probably I haven't heard of him.
I hadn't either at
Nope.
all, but I found kind of the same information over and over again. There isn't much else I could find other than pretty much what I put in here, and I'm going to tell you guys.
Sounds
So,
good.
Jordan was born December 12th, 1931, in Vancouver, BC, so super west.
Oh wow, my best friend growing up's birthday is December
Oh no.
12th. She's a Sagittarius.
Well, hopefully,
They're usually
yeah, hopefully she wasn't born in 1931, though.
I don't think so.
So his family members described from a young age that he had a bad temper and had kind of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. And the reason why I picked him is he is attributed as the first Canadian to use alcohol as a murder weapon. And he's the first person in the world to be put on trial for homicide with alcohol consumption as the murder weapon. Yes.
What? Alcohol
Yes.
consumption.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they were like alcohol
Yeah.
poisoning is what we would call
Alcohol
it.
poisoning. I have a little bit of information on that we'll get to in a bit.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, a little bit of background on Jordan here. He is a lifelong criminal. He was in and out of prison for a multiple different types of crimes. In one of his stints in
Mm-hmm.
prison, he learned how to be a barber. His main criminal record started when he was in his early 20s in 1952 with the convictions of rape, indecent assault, abduction of a 5-year-old Indigenous girl that was found in his car, hit and run,
Oh no.
multiple drunk driving.
Alive?
Pardon?
Was the girl alive?
Yeah. So she was just abducted. He actually was never charged with anything for abducting this 5-year-old Indigenous girl.
Oh, that
He
doesn't
was
surprise
actually
me,
not
sadly.
charged with really anything. They got him on very little. and which is horrific considering he has like a 30-year crime spree. But
Oh, great,
yeah.
great.
So
Well, buckle up.
he was also an avid drunk driving person, including being charged with drunk driving twice in one day.
Oh, good
Yeah.
Lord. They didn't take it the first time?
No, he was arrested. I think back then they didn't impound your vehicle or anything. You probably just got a ticket. And he
Jeez,
was also charged
that's
with car theft.
okay. That
Yeah, that
tracks.
makes sense.
Yeah. I'm getting a picture
Yeah.
here.
So he's a dropout. He was believed to be in alcohol starting by the age 16, and then this is kind of dates back about that time his parents actually got a divorce. So that's believed to what caused him to drop out and become relying on alcohol so heavily.
I mean, sounds familiar, but you don't have to go that far down
Oh,
that road.
he goes far. He goes real far.
Oh,
All right.
you can do it.
So
Just get
yeah,
over it. No.
go to therapy,
Okay.
please. Don't do what this gentleman
Oh,
did at all.
well, we were watching something the other day. I don't know if it was Forensic Files. I love Forensic Files, don't get me wrong. But it was just like, and her parents were divorced, so they obviously didn't pay attention to her, but she did kill her father. So I was like, obviously something was wrong there, but don't blame it all on
Yeah, it can't be all
divorce,
blamed on
people.
divorce.
Anyway, continue.
So later on, uh, probably in his early 20s when he was in and out of prison, so he's described as having a ravenous appetite for booze and drunken sex. So great
Okay.
descriptor there. Jordan is also, I don't know at what point in his life this is from. I'd say probably before he was in prison in one of the stints. And actually, his crimes were found out. So Jordan was known for drinking more than 50 ounces of vodka each day, which equates to almost 2 full water bottles of vodka.
Fifth, yeah, so okay, okay, New Brunswick, we called a quart. It was like a 26 ouncer, I
Yeah,
want to say. Like
yeah.
that's a
So he
lot.
drank 2 of those.
That's a
Yeah,
lot.
of vodka, straight vodka.
Okay. I do feel better about myself now and my
Yeah.
wine.
So his main target for crimes were Indigenous prostitutes in downtown Vancouver. So what happened is he regularly paid
Mm,
them to drink with him or to have sex with them, obviously. So after
yeah.
his stint in prison where he learned how to be a barber, he had actually received money around this time from a family member that passed away. So he got quite a large inheritance. He bought a barber shop. This is how he was able to pay these women to drink with him as well as have sex with him. And then he also started paying for a multitude of cheap hotel rooms or hourly hotel rooms. So he would take the women back to the barber shop to drink with him or back to hotel rooms.
Oh, one
Sure.
question. Do we know what street he's on? It sounds a whole lot like the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, but in Vancouver.
Uh,
Could be the Demon Barber of Robson, perhaps. I don't know.
I don't. Oh, they
Oh,
do actually. I have the address. So his barber shop was at
yeah.
2503 Kingsway. I don't
Oh
have the rest of
God.
the address. Um,
We have a Kingsman here
yeah, but this was in,
in
yeah, this
Edmonton.
is not in Alberta, though.
Whoops, triangulating my address again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but yeah, there's some very seedy parts in and around
Yeah, this was
Vancouver, like
downtown. So
sir.
downtown always has seedy areas. And downtown anywhere.
Lots of homeless
Yeah.
people there. Very like, you'd think almost, it's like the LA of the Canadian West
Mhm.
Coast. Mm-hmm.
And so once his victims passed out, he would typically force and pour more alcohol down their throats, eventually killing them. And unfortunately, he did also often rape his victims as they died. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Both our guys are assholes this
Yeah, this
week.
is
That's all
if
I
you
know.
look him up, he just looks like a creep. He just looks like his picture just makes sense with everything you learn about him. His face looks like he did all these
Uh,
things.
yeah, yeah. We'll have to post some
Yeah.
pics of him. Yeah, that.
So, some information about alcohol poisoning. So, death by alcohol poisoning occurs typically at point zero or point 0.4. The legal limit for driving, at least in Canada here, is 0.08. So,
Correct. Same as the States,
yeah.
anyway.
So, chugging
Mm-hmm.
approximately 12 beers results in a blood alcohol level of 0.3. So, again, alcohol poisoning is 0.4. So, the point when a person usually blacks out is 0.3. So, to die of alcohol
Oh,
poisoning, the victim has to drink a lot of alcohol very fast.
no kidding. I mean, you hear of, yeah, people going to the hospital for it, but like, yeah, that's really serious to actually be killed.
Yeah. So,
Because you normally pass out before you can ingest enough. And so I see how he's like pushing it over the edge by then pouring more into their
mhm.
mouths. That's bad.
So,
Just ruin alcohol for me
yeah.
some more. Is this an
No.
intervention?
It's not. I picked this and then I was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna talk about alcohol for like 40 minutes." Alcohol poisoning. Here's how I tell you the facts. No.
People say no. All right. We're cool.
Yeah.
We're cool. You can pick up your wine again.
So, uh, Gilbert Paul Jordan, his name wasn't always that. His name was actually Paul Elsie. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. So, I don't know what year it is exactly. I don't have it in my notes, but he did actually legally change his name to last name to Jordan. Um, and the application was
How is
approved.
this?
This is after one of the first murders he committed. Yeah,
Oh,
so he was worried about it being traced back to him, and he did legally change his name.
because
Yeah,
of the murder?
because he was
That's
seen with these
intense.
women. He was like known to frequent these bars, known to hang around these women, leave with them, pay them for sex.
I suppose this is kind of pre DNA testing if you went until
Yeah,
1987. So he's like, I changed my name. They won't know.
exactly.
Who else?
Of
Okay,
course,
okay,
because a lot of
gotcha.
these women were prostitutes, and were indigenous as well, the deaths were largely ignored by police, and ruled typically just as alcohol poisoning, because that's what it was. So they weren't believed necessarily to be like foul
Oh,
play. Yeah.
oh,
So,
that's a problem
yeah.
here.
So Jordan was
Mhm.
first convicted of manslaughter in 1988 with the death of Vanessa Lee Buckner. She was found murdered in the hotel room after a night of drinking with Jordan. And approximately a month later, Edna Shade was found in another hotel. And Jordan's fingerprints were found at this scene, and he was linked to another death. And at this time, the police placed him under surveillance. Mhm.
Okay. So he's the
Yeah, so he's
suspect.
officially after the second um, death that he's associated with, he's placed under surveillance. Obviously, like witnesses said, yeah, they left together, things like that.
Okay. Okay. But they can't nail him
Exactly. They
yet.
need like
Gotcha.
concrete proof that he is causing this to happen. So there is a multitude of police intervening during attempted murders. So police intervened during a later attempted murder after witnessing him pouring alcohol down a woman's throat. You think that yeah,
Witnessing.
witnessing him. So they did have him under surveillance. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit because that was not fun. And in my opinion, they decided to keep going after getting more and more evidence against him instead of actually just going based on what they already had. They were endangering these women as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So during trial, the Crown provided evidence that Jordan was linked to at least 6 other deaths of Aboriginal women, as well as evidence that he had been following women at the time of their death. So, just to remind everybody, alcohol poisoning occurs at 0.4. So, the deaths that the Crown provided evidence for were the death of Mary Johnson, November 30th, 1980. Her blood alcohol level was 0.34. There's Barbara Paul, September 11th, 1981. Her blood alcohol level was 0.41. Mary
Oh my
Johns,
God.
July 30th, 1982. This was at his barber shop. Her blood alcohol level was 0.76. So almost
That's
twice
more
the amount for alcohol poisoning.
more alcohol than
Yeah.
blood. Is that right? That's more alcohol than blood? That's 76% alcohol to every,
I actually don't know
20.
how that
Oh,
works. I didn't look that part up.
that's insane though. Like okay, I get what you're saying with the point
Yeah, it's not
four.
even the worst one.
You can start.
Yeah, that's not
Okay.
even the worst one by
Point
far.
eight. Yeah, point 0.8 you're driving drunk. Point
Yeah.
zero 0.08 rather.
So
Okay.
the fourth one was Patricia Thomas, December 15th, 1984. Her blood alcohol was 0.51. There was Patricia Andrew, June 28th, 1985. Her blood alcohol was 0.79. And last attributed to him was Vera Harry, November 19th, 1986. Her blood alcohol was 0.04. So that was actually severely low considering the other ones. So she would have even
Yeah.
been able to drive.
That
Yeah, I'm
that's
not sure why
weird
that one
then. I wonder
necessarily is
how.
attributed to him. There wasn't a lot of information about the specifics of these women's like individual interactions with him. Uh,
Okay. Yeah, there might be
yeah,
more
so
of that
all of these
story.
ones that were I listed, those 6 are what was attributed to him after the fact. So these weren't the ones that the police were monitoring because they had already occurred at the time he was convicted. So the one that caused him to be convicted is October 12th, 1987. Vanessa Lee Buckner was found naked on the floor of a Niagara hotel after a night of drinking with Jordan. Court records describe Miss Buckner's death as a result of Jordan supplying a lethal amount of liquor to a female alcoholic who died as a result. There is a little bit of back and forth about what her background is. So some things stated that she was an upstanding citizen. They have no idea why she was out drinking with him or would have been drinking because that's not what she did. Other things state that she had recently lost custody of her newborn baby, who had been born with a drug dependency. So it's like wildly from one end to the other, what kind of lifestyle she had.
Yeah. But
Exactly,
regardless, she died.
exactly. So hers is, in my opinion, the most tragic. So she was described as
Mm-hmm.
an alcoholic and a taker of various kinds of drugs. Again, I don't know how accurate that is. So when she died,
So
yeah,
deserve
when
to
she
die.
died, her blood alcohol level was 0.91. And again,
Oh.
0.4. will kill you.
Ow!
And she was
That's
at
an
0.91, which is more than twice the amount needed to kill a person. So during trials, the court would hear that Jordan poisoned her, sexually assaulted her, and left her to die, and witnessed while he was leaving the room that black fluid was oozing out of her mouth and nose. Yeah,
oh my
I'm like, I don't
God.
want to picture that fluid, but that sounds awful.
I don't even understand how he got that much into
So
them. Oops.
it kind
Sorry.
of does. They talk about it a little bit. So they pretty much, like, the police in the end kind of like barged into multiple of the hotel rooms while these were happening, and they were listening from other rooms, and let this continue to happen. So they kept recording audio of him. They were planting bugs in the room so that they could build their case. Yeah.
Oh,
So they took way too long to
that.
intervene in this. So the last
Mhm.
four and the four that he started being surveilled during all occurred in 1 week. So yeah, so he
Holy
started
shit.
escalating. The last few had been occurring over the span of 6 years, from one to the other. So over 6 years, six women, and then the other four he's associated with, bringing the total to 10, they believe, happened in 6 days. So there is, uh, so a month after Vanessa Lee Buckner's death, another woman, Edna Shade, was found dead in another hotel, and Jordan's fingerprints were found and linked to Miss Buckner's death. So after they became aware of those two deaths, they placed him under surveillance. So at that time, they only knew about these two deaths. So the police intervened before the deaths of Rosemary Wilson on November 20th, 1987, at the Baltimore Hotel. Her blood alcohol level was at 0.52. There's Verna Chartrand,
Wow.
November 21st, 1987, at the Pacific Hotel. Her blood alcohol level was 0.43. Sheila Joel on November 25th, 1987, at the Rainbow Hotel. Her blood alcohol level is unknown. And Mabel Wilson on November 26th, 1987, at the Pacific Hotel. Her blood alcohol level was also unknown. Yeah,
Oh, wonder what that means.
I
That's insane.
Yeah, I just feel bad that these four women, like, obviously after they knew he had been associated and he was linked to the deaths of these two women. So I feel like after the first two were intervened during, they shouldn't have had to have the other two women. But thankfully, these were all intervened before these women died. So they know for sure six women he killed. So Rosemary, Verna, Sheila, and Mabel, he did not kill. Yeah.
Okay. So how long, like, how many were the police watching for? That's what I got a little
They
confused
were
about.
monitoring the
Like, they
death of
were.
Edna Shade and Vanessa Lee Buckner, so they were pretty much just following him to see what he was doing. And over the course of the week, they had to intervene 4 times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's busy. He's busy.
So,
That's fine. Thanks.
yeah. So,
Thanks. I hate it.
yeah, 6 is too many in a week, buddy. But
Oh
yeah,
my.
but if you think about it, it's actually quite surprising that, like, anything was ever necessarily done about it, because in the end it would be very easy to write all of these off as just alcohol poisoning, because that's exactly what they appear to be and that's exactly what they were. Like, you wouldn't necessarily know that there
Right.
was,
Just
like, foul play.
a homicide. Hmm. Except for, yeah, I guess if you were not so inclined, if there wasn't anything suspicious to make you want to test their
Yeah.
blood alcohol level.
So during the
Yeah.
surveillance of him and the intervention of these four women, there is surveillance audio recorded by police outside of the hotel, and Jordan is heard saying, and I quote, "Have a drink down the hatch, baby. $20 if you drink it right now. See if you're a real woman. Finish that drink. Finish that drink. Down the hatch. Hurry. Right down. You need another drink? I'll give you $50 if you can take it. I'll give you 10, 20, $50, whatever you want. Come on. I want to see if you can get it all down. You get it down, or you get it right down, I'll give you $50, and the $13, I'll give you $50. I told you that. If you finish that, I'll give you $75. Finish your drink, I'll give you $20." Yeah.
Yeah. How easy. I mean, he sounds gross, but at the same time, you're
Yeah, and
drunk, he's
these are
offering
prostitutes.
money.
Like, it's easy
Who's
money. Like, here, take that shot. I'll give you $10.
yeah.
Like, okay. And have to keep into fact that these women, almost all of them were alcoholics. So somebody paying you to drink, like, as an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
he knew where to get
exactly.
him.
So in court, when he was asked to give a statement, what he did say is that all these women were on their last legs, and that he didn't give a damn who he was with, and that we're all dying sooner or later. So he had no remorse or anything, for killing these women. Yeah.
Gross.
So Jordan was charged with manslaughter for the death of Vanessa Buckner. He was not charged with a single other death, which I find horrible.
Like, so, sorry, two deaths total
No,
only?
he's known to have killed 8 women.
What was, like, sorry, he was charged or
One.
convicted with how many?
Yeah. He was only
Oh,
ever charged with one
God.
murder. He was charged with some of his other things like the vehicle thefts and stuff from his criminal past, but nothing else for these murders, only ever one.
That's
Hmm.
pathetic. They knew about
And they
or were
intervened
privy
on
to at
4 of
least
them.
two.
So you could have had attempted 4 times.
Well, yeah, exactly. That doesn't make
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
sense.
So during the court proceedings, Jordan was examined by a Dr. Tibor Berzerndi, and he was described as having antisocial personality and a person whose conduct was maladjusted in terms of social behavior with a disregard for the rights of others, which often results in unlawful activities. He was also described as being very manipulative during the court proceedings.
That
Yeah.
tracks. That
So,
tracks.
with the money that he inherited from the death of that family member, he was able to invest that into the stock market, and actually his investment ended up paying off, so that he accumulated him even more money, which enabled him to
Sorry,
pay for his
yeah.
lawyer and the hotel rooms he was constantly paying for. Like I said, 4 of them in 6 days. Like, yeah.
Right. No, I was just saying
Oh,
I dropped my phone. Sorry. I didn't know if you heard it. I
no.
screamed. Okay. That's, oh,
Yeah. So
he's
as well as
gross.
paying these prostitutes for sex or to binge drink with him, um, that's also where he got the money for that. And according to his statement in court, he claims that he had approximately sex with approximately 200 women a year. So he's just a gross man. And he had to pay people to drink with him and
Yeah.
keep him company. Um, and he kept the company solely of other alcoholics, as sober people wouldn't go out with him and wanted nothing to do with him. Mhm.
Yeah.
So his first victim was later revealed to have happened at least a decade before the others. So in 1965, Ivy Rose, or Doreen, was found in a Vancouver hotel room with a blood alcohol level of 0.51. He was not charged with this death or attached to it originally during the court proceedings, but it was later revealed that that was the first victim.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So Jordan filed an appeal and was released from prison in 1994. So he actually pretty much served hardly anything for these. So he was sentenced to 15 years in prison in 1988. He filed an appeal and it was later reduced to 9 years. He filed another appeal and he was released in 1994. So he served 6 years. So 1 year for each of the deaths.
Yeah, that seems
Right?
fair, hey?
So,
I'm just gonna go
right?
cry now.
So the reason he was able to file his appeal and be released from prison in 1994 is that a Crown cited that he was not told specifically that it was illegal to pour alcohol down a woman's throat and that he should not remain in prison because he didn't know that was illegal.
What was he, his own lawyer? I mean, sure he was. Don't even don't even
Right?
answer that. I can't spend any more time
So
on this
after
loser.
serving 6 years, he was
Wow.
released on probation, which restricted him to Vancouver Island. He was later arrested multiple times for violating probation orders to stay on Vancouver Island.
They
Yeah,
don't want
right?
him.
They're trying to ship him away, and he just keeps coming back. So he did make another.
Actually put him,
He,
yeah. Put him wherever they filmed Alone on Vancouver Island. Like where there's nobody around and it's freezing in the
just make
winter
his
and
own
it's
island.
yeah. Yeah, he should. Yeah. What they say a man is not an
Yeah,
island, but you should
he
be.
should be an island. So Uh,
Pedophile.
in
No.
2000, he attempted to change his name again. So he had already changed it after the first one, which was the 1965 Ivy Rose. So that's when he changed his name the first time. Yeah.
Oh
So he
yeah.
attempted to change his name again in the year 2000 to Paul Pierce, but was unable to after he submitted his application, and BC authorities were notified of this application and they closed a loophole and began to require a criminal background check before you could change your name. Once he became aware of this background check, he did withdraw his application to change his name.
Okay, so he's still known
Yeah,
by
Gilbert
his
Paul Jordan.
current George.
So in
Okay.
2002, he was arrested for another breach of probation after being found drinking in the presence of a woman while in possession of alcohol. So that was one of his requirements of probation. So he was sentenced to 15 months in jail and 3 years probation and strict conditions. 2 years later, he was arrested again for violating his probation after being found in a hotel in Saskatchewan drinking with a long-term resident of the hotel, an alcoholic who was later taken to hospital by a friend and hotel employee after finding her because she was quite unconscious. He was later acquitted of the charges during this 2004 arrest. He was acquitted in 2005, and upon release to the public, a warning was released. So the warning read, Jordan Gilbert Paul, age 73, is the subject of this alert. Jordan is 175 centimeters or 5'9" tall and weighs 79 kilograms or 174 pounds. He is partially bald with gray hair and a gray goatee. He has blue eyes and wears glasses. Jordan is currently in the Victoria area but has no fixed address. Jordan has a significant criminal record, including manslaughter and indecent assault of a female. He uses alcohol to lure his victims. Jordan's target victim group is adult females. Jordan is subject to court-ordered conditions including abstain from the consumption of alcohol, not to be in the company of any female persons of any place where alcohol is either being consumed or possessed by that person. And all I have really after that is that he died in 2006 at the age of 74. So after this arrest and acquittal in
Yeah,
2005, we don't really know what happens between 2005 and 2006, but dude was 74 when he died. Right?
good
Yeah. So that's my
riddance.
case. That's Gilbert P. Jordan, aka the Boozing Barber. The first Canadian to use alcohol as a murder weapon and the first person in the world to be put on trial for death by alcohol consumption. Right? Oh, it's
Bleh.
so gross.
It
Yeah.
is.
Just like the image of him paying these women to have sex with him and then paying them to drink until they passed out and then pouring more alcohol down their throats, which killed them, and then raping them pretty much as they died by alcohol poisoning. Is
But was that always his motive? It seemed like he just got off on the killing them in that way too, which is just
I think
bleh.
there's well think about it. If he did state that he in his mind had sex with about 200 women a year. So if he's doing this on a
Yeah,
virtually almost daily basis and for sure every second day for approximately what his first victim was in 1965, but the first deaths that they figured out later started in 1980. So that's 15 years he was possibly doing this before they ever really knew. So there could be many, many more,
yeah,
or these could be just the one-offs that it happened to that had this happen to them that they died as a result. Because there could be many, many more that this exact thing
yeah.
happened to them. They just didn't die. And it wasn't reported because they were alcoholics, prostitutes, and indigenous women in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Just lucky to be alive at
Yeah.
that point, poor things.
Yeah, I had
Nope,
never
never
heard
heard of
of him
him.
either.
Yeah, say it. Remember what it's called?
The
The
no,
monster.
it's the monster of
It's okay, it's a New Brunswick town. It's the monster of the Miramichi.
yeah, I almost said monster of Mitsubishi.
Oh, that has a similar ring.
Yeah, like the monster of Mitsubishi cars.
Oh, speaking of the monster of Miramichi, everyone else that is like hasn't been there kind of thing seems to pronounce it like I don't know, sometimes like they're the monster of Miramachi, the monster of Miramichi. Like it looks like it
Oh,
could be
okay.
it's spelled in that it could be pronounced any number of different ways almost, but
Nice.
it's in New Brunswick, so I'm like, yeah, it's Miramichi. I think it's probably a like a native name, like the we got the
Yeah.
Micmac and the Massey down there. Yeah. So, the monster of Miramichi. Alan
Ooh.
Joseph Leger was born on Friday, the 13th of February, 1948, in Chatham, New Brunswick, a small town along the Miramichi River. Friday the
That's never good.
13th. Just to set the tone. He was raised by his mother, and his biological father, Leonard Como, was kind of a deadbeat dad. He wasn't really in the picture. He left when Alan was very young. So they were kind of poor, probably as a consequence. And, as a consequence to that, he was teased and bullied a bit. But other than that, like he didn't really have a bad childhood, in my opinion, to be honest. Like your parents are divorced, okay, like, you don't have the best toys, like, whatever. You
Yeah,
can live.
my guy, his like alcoholism was tied back to his parents being divorced, which I, yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Not all divorced children. What is it they say? Not all men, not all divorced children end up
Yeah.
bad. But as I heard on another podcast, I was listening to, it's like another Canadian podcast, true crime podcast called Dark Poutine or Dark Poutine. And
Okay.
they said he did share a room. Yeah, I listened to their podcast. It was really good. They did like have some details on it that I was like, wow. I liked listening to other podcasts to get details too, because articles kind of only have so much.
Yeah.
Um, and they said he shared a room with his sisters and he would actually like jerk off or masturbate while he was in the room or looking at them, which is not something I'd
Soup's
heard
gross.
before. Yeah, not something I wish I'd heard again.
Yeah,
Ugh,
incest.
just he's gross. Yeah. So that was just like they give a little bit of background, or just to give a little background on his psyche as a child or as a teenager. But so raised or born in 1948, and then we'll fast forward to June 22nd, 1986, in a town called Black River Bridge, New Brunswick. Alan Leger is 38 years old, and he and his two buddies decide to get up to some shit that night. He and Todd Matchett and Scott Curtis are outside of a mom and pop grocery store that is closed for the evening. It was owned by an elderly couple, John and Mary Glendenning, who were getting ready for bed. They had just closed up their shop for the night. So the trio, they cut power to the shop and then they broke in. They were going after the safe that they knew was on the premises, but they severely beat John first, and then Mary was sexually assaulted and knocked out. They hit John in the head with a rock from his own yard. They hit up the couple's safe, and then they fled the scene. But at this point, Mary regained consciousness and discovered John was dead from his injuries. He was so badly beaten that all his fingers were broken, and he was wrapped in a cord from their own clock radio. This being
Awful.
that time where you have clock radios.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad. Just awful. There was like an actual boot print on his face and a shirt knotted around his neck.
They suck.
Like, content warning. It's bad.
Hmm.
Mary dragged herself upstairs to the phone to dial for help. They had tried to cut the phone line basically, but they hadn't cut all the right cords, so she was able to dial 911 and was barely alive at this point. She hadn't
Okay.
recognized any of her attackers. Yeah. So the police didn't really have any leads to go on either. Um, the cops received an anonymous tip. Three individuals had been spotted with a safe. These men's turned out to be taught these men's these men
These men's.
turned these menzies. Oh.
No. Got a case of the menses.
um
These tampons.
um and the third man they did know. The cops knew Alan Legier. Alan had been in trouble over the years, mostly like minor crimes, no major felonies, but he
Okay.
was known to be violent. So he was on their radar for sure, as you are if you're kind of an asshole. Driving home tonight, I said, my friend Caitlin drives home with me because we work together and live in the same neighborhood. And I was like, at first I start reading this, it's like written on the back of a Jeep or a minivan or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is like a decal that you can buy, but it says like Jesus loves you. But I was like, oh, and then I was like, but everyone thinks you're an asshole. Nice. I was expecting that.
Lovely. My
I
mom's
know.
favorite thing ever was I can't remember where it was. If it was after my parents moved here, or if it was when my
Yeah.
mom still lived in Manitoba. But there was a church, that was near a Safeway, and
Oh yeah.
if I remember correctly, there was the church sign because they were in like the same area. So the church sign said like Jesus saves you, and then Safeway sign said Safeway saves you more. And
No.
right? Oh, and I just think of that every time I think of
I love
those
it.
signs. Jesus saves you. Safeway saves you more.
Safeway saves you more.
Like, it's great.
Oh, it is. It is.
I love that.
I don't know. Yeah, there's the save on more, the what about buy for less, and then I don't know if it was The Simpsons or actually shopping with my mother trying to call it like the try and save. That might
Yeah.
be The Simpsons. I'm confusing it,
I always
but
used to
it's
call
like the
Safeway it's safe, but it's away. I don't know why. It was just like it's safe, but it's away from home, so it's safe away.
they can be a little pricey.
They
I get
are,
it.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
We only shopped there before the superstore opened in my town.
We sound like little babushkas, but like, damn, the superstore is not a little farmer's market either. Like, it
No,
is always busy. Holy
no,
shit,
it's
the
like if you
weekends
went
is
into
like,
Walmart, but Walmart
oh,
actually had good produce and a good meat department. That's what
oh,
superstore is. Like
exactly.
you couldn't pay me to
Every
grocery
Sunday is
shop
Black
at
Friday.
Walmart.
Sorry.
Like you couldn't pay
Yeah,
me to grocery shop at Walmart. It's shit. It's
no,
terrible. Like, yeah.
no. Even though they are trying to be a superstore, quote unquote, right now with all the produce and yeah, all the
The only
different
ones that
departments.
actually have like a good selection are the super center, like Walmart's here.
I
Like,
remember buying some, yeah, hamburger, and then my mom was here visiting, and then it's like, where did you get that hamburger? It cooked up weird, and I was like, well, we got that at the Walmart. Oh yeah, it was like, I'm sorry.
I know I went in there one time because I wanted
Right.
to buy a pre-made sandwich, and I looked around
Yeah.
every aisle because I thought, hey, like they have a deli department, they have probably like at least like a ham and cheese sandwich I can just grab and eat. And they do not have
They
pre-made sandwiches in Walmart.
no, no,
Like,
no, they don't have anything fresh, I would venture to say.
yeah, it was like stupid. I was like, I can buy a dozen sugar cookies and like all these muffins, but I can't buy a fucking sandwich.
Right, but they're no, trying to call themselves a superstore, like, oh, you can buy all your groceries here.
No,
It's like, no,
you can buy
but we can buy
house.
some cheap juice and we can buy
Yeah,
cheap bacon wrapped
yeah, you
scallops.
can buy like household items and stuff there, but you can't do a
Oh yeah, yeah,
proper grocery shop.
no. It's nice there's a Dollarama like just down the way from my local Walmart. Woo!
Yeah, I like dollar stores.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, better value.
yeah. Hold on, I just dropped the headphone on the floor and I don't know where it went. It just popped out of my ear. Okay, carry on.
Oh no.
We 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 derailed a bit of
Um,
ranting about Walmart.
back on track. Who is that? I watched Masked Singer. I don't know if you do. Oh my
No,
God, it started again last night.
no, my parents watch all that. I don't watch it.
Okay, but even the beginning is fun. They start with that oh God, I want to say it's a Law and Order. No. It's the Who are you? Ooh. That's what they start with. The beginning
Oh,
song. It's that
that was from.
It's from
Oh, I almost said
what?
CSI Miami, but that was a different song.
That some era, something like that. Anyway, it totally fits, right? Because they're always guessing people
Yeah.
with the mask. Oh, it's a good show. I know. Okay, we gotta get through this. They were called in about Todd Hatchett, Scott Curtis, and Alan Legier. Alan had been in trouble over the years, mostly minor crimes, but he was known to be pretty violent. They arrested the men and asked Alan to provide a DNA sample, which he attempted to refuse, but the cops were like, no, you have to. So they cut samples from his head and his beard hair. It was a match to the DNA found at the scene of the Glendenning's murder.
Dun dun
So the
dun.
two other perpetrators dun, 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 were left in a holding cell together, and they were both making all sorts of incriminating remarks to each other that confirmed they were involved, kind of singing like canaries.
Yeah.
But it, I mean, justice system not always smooth, so I would say, needless to say, they were all three convicted, but at least they were all convicted.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, first, no, but it was funny because how they were like, no, we don't know how we came across this like stolen goods or money from a safe. Like someone gave it to us, we swear.
Yeah.
Don't know nothing. They just tried to plead really dumb. Allen was eventually sentenced to life with the possibility of parole in 18 years, or without the possibility of parole for 18 years. Scott Curtis and Todd Matchett both pled guilty and were given life without the possibility of parole for 16 years. They were both in their late teens at the time, and Allen was quite a bit older, like in his 30s, so he was considered the ringleader. So he did get a little bit of a longer sentence, but
Only
it
slightly.
still wasn't. Yeah, exactly. He was brought to the maximum security penitentiary in Renew, New Brunswick. According to the Canadian Encyclopedia.ca, the prison administrators were not informed that during his trial for the Glendenning murder, Legier had successfully picked open his handcuffs in a failed escape attempt, which I thought was interesting
He's
because
like a
it might be
magician.
pertinent information to know. Mr. Alan Legier Houdini.
Yeah. Just put him in a straitjacket.
I mean, it's good to know what you've got on your hands, I would say.
Yeah.
However, he was just kept in a segregation unit. He was friendly with his guards. There was a warden, Don Wheaton, and he was later quoted to have said he had sort of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. So, like, I guess he could be nice when he wanted to.
Yeah, my guy was described the same
Um,
way by his family.
really,
Yeah, saying he had a Jekyll and Hyde personality, like he could flip and everything.
yeah, that's kind of almost the scariest because you're like, could anyone I know just gonna be able to flip at any time?
Yeah, maybe.
Not cool. Just watch out for that.
Yeah.
Um, so back to Alan Legier. He thought the cops were out to get him, but he also thought they were stupid. He didn't deserve to be in jail. They were suckers, the whole classic shebang.
Yeah, it's everybody's fault but
He
mine.
thought, oh, exactly. No, I couldn't possibly be an asshole.
I couldn't possibly have murdered those people. Oh.
Oh, yeah, I know. Some people are just weirdly like, it's like Ed Kemper. I was listening to Strange Brew today, which is another Canadian podcast I was telling you about. It's
Yeah.
pretty good. And he was talking about Edmund Kemper, and then they had a little clip of him, and I don't know, they didn't mention like, we watched him on the show with the Mine
Mindhunter.
Hunters, and
Whoop
he was
whoop. My favorite.
excellently portrayed
Yeah.
by, I believe it's Cameron Britton, the
Yes.
actor, but
He is also in the Umbrella
yeah.
Academy. He's a fantastic actor.
Okay, that's how they noted him on like IMDb or whatever it was, but
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that. I was like, what? You should be talking about mine hunters. Or they mentioned mine hunters, but maybe not Manhunter, because he was also in that show,
Yeah.
which was hella good too. And he was a good guy preventing a bomb attack, just to be on the opposite side. Oh,
Yeah.
he's so good.
Yeah. He's just starting his career too. I'm looking forward to seeing him in more things. He's he's good at
Yeah,
doing
like he
the
can't be that old,
character.
right? Well, no, and he's like, like I say, he's got to be a young guy.
Uh, I think he's in like his mid to late 30s. He used to be
Yeah,
a
so that
school
means to be,
teacher. He used to teach like special needs students.
that's adorable.
Yeah.
Um, where did I derail on that one? He thought the guards were
Yeah.
suckers. So, sorry, Alan Legier wanted to trick people, like, or he would appear to have these ear infections, but he was causing them himself by poking himself in the ear with sharp objects,
That sounds really
like a needle.
painful.
Like he was committed, I'm telling you. They would take him for treatment to various hospitals and out clinics, where they could, because they couldn't deal with it in a hospital at the prison.
Mhm.
Um, they took him somewhere, like, yeah, to the Moncton Hospital in the winter of 1988. There was no incident. He was on his best behavior. They fixed him up. He came back.
Okay.
Um, but by May 3rd, 1989, he had another appointment scheduled with a specialist at the Moncton Hospital. The two guards took him, Bob Hazlitt and Robert Winters, and they came to pick him up around 7:30 in the morning at his cell. He was in the bathroom. They had to kind of wait. There was like an intercom system, I think. And he came out, but then was like, "Oh no, I forgot my pen and I need to do my crossword." So he had to go back to his cell. Because, I mean, I would need my book if I was having to go wait in the doctor's office. I don't know.
Can't just sit there and be alone with your
But they let
thoughts.
him. No.
How dare we not be
Hence the
continuously
podcast.
entertained?
Oh, always,
Yeah.
always. And people would be like, "You are reading a big ass book everywhere I see you," even when I would still smoke cigarettes, and I'd be like outside in the rain, like reading a big book. I'm like, yeah.
And
and and then you're introduced to something like TikTok, and it entertains you 5 seconds at a time, and that's a whole other dangerous
yeah, I
endeavor.
don't like the shortness of those. I never did that. I don't do TikTok. I never did Vine. It's
Oh, I heard about Vine after it happened.
oh yeah.
I mean, I'm getting clued into things because I feel like an older generation when I have a younger child. It makes me feel like an old fart. All right. May 3rd, 1989. I don't really remember this. I do remember the name though. Let me tell you, growing up, I heard the name Alan Legier, and it's like, okay, I've heard that name. You know what I mean? Like you're like the same way you heard like O.J. Simpson or something.
Yeah. It's
I
like a
don't
local story.
know. Yeah. Yeah. So he had this appointment scheduled with the specialist because of his ear infections. So this was at the Moncton Hospital. His two guards took him. He was in the bathroom because he had said he had to pee once he got there. He has his crossword pen, he's all set to go.
Yeah.
Or sorry. Yeah, they got him out of the bathroom. This guy, he's always in the bathroom. They didn't search him with a metal detector, but they kind of patted him down as he came back out of his cell after he had his little bathroom break. He had on his person exactly a ballpoint pen and two cigars in their little individual plastic cases.
Mhm.
These guards seemed to know that Alan Legier didn't smoke, or they probably would have thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
They cuff him in his legs, shackles in his handcuffs, and the two guards and a driver named Doug Sweezy rather, took him for the hour and 45-minute drive to the Moncton Hospital. Doug Sweezy, the driver, stayed in the car while the other three went into the building when they got there. No one else noticed that one of the cigars wrappers lay on the floor because he had two cigars in his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, I mean, has a bladder problem because once he gets into the hospital, he has to use the bathroom again. Oh, yes, it was an hour and a half later. I mean, to be honest, I'd probably have to pee
Yeah.
too. If I'd had a drink in the car, having had some drunken road trips to Moncton myself.
Yep.
But Winters, one of the guards, took him to the bathroom. The other guy went to check him in with the paperwork at the front desk, kind of thing. After a few minutes, Alan Legier yells out to Winters, like, "Can I get some more toilet paper?" So Winters goes off to reception to find some. Seconds later, Legier sprints off, like he takes off out of the bathroom. He's no longer shackled and he's running straight for the door. Winters far behind, but he's on his heels. But they were not suspecting this. Like, he just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They didn't think he could get out of his shackles, for one thing. He's yelling for Winter not to follow him, and he's got some sort of makeshift knife or jagged piece of metal in his hands, from what Winters can see. It turns out to be, in actual fact, a piece of the TV antenna from Legier's room that he had broken off and stuffed up his butt. Out.
Would have been an uncomfortable hour and a half car ride.
And if you get bad reception, well, then you're He had hidden a piece also in the other cigar packet, I think, that didn't end up on the floor. Outside, the driver, Doug Sweezy, sees Alan getting away and tries to give chase, but Alan brandishes his weapon and takes a swipe at Doug and gets away from him. He then flags down or accosts a lady in her car trying to get out of the hospital parking lot, and he basically carjacks her. But she's still in the car, driving, and this woman, Peggy Olive, she was eventually released unharmed.
That's good.
He had said to her, "Do as I tell you, and you won't be harmed." Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I wouldn't say that he's completely a decent person, though.
Oh, not at all.
But at least that was all. So he let her go. He carjacked her, got a card, get out of the hospital, let her go. He's got the car. He's on the lam. A series of robberies, car theft, assault, all follow after this.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be caught for another 201 days in the Miramichi region. So there was terror everywhere.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It's so long. COVID long. No.
COVID's longer now, officially, as of yesterday, I think.
So long. What to do? No.
You start a podcast.
Pandemic podcast, baby.
Yeah. Whoop, whoop.
Exactly. 25 days after he escaped, on the 28th of May, police were called to the home of Annie Flam in the town of Chatham. This was Legier's hometown, actually. It's now a neighborhood in the town of Miramichi. So Annie Flam, 75 years old, and her sister-in-law, 61, owned a local grocery store. Smoke was noticed at their residence at around 3 a.m. by an off-duty firefighter, I believe.
Okay.
And when the police arrived, the entire upper portion of the house was already on fire. Nina was found semi-conscious at the foot of the stairwell, and Annie was eventually found in her bedroom. She was unfortunately dead from her injuries. They had both been beaten and raped.
It's terrible.
Nina, it's so terrible. She was able to talk to police though. Excuse me. And Nina said a man claiming to be named Gerald demanded $3,000, and if she had complied, he said he wouldn't hurt her. This didn't really turn out to be true. He asked her about a safe, which she insisted she didn't have, and he attacked and raped her anyway. She was also badly burned when they found her, and Annie's body was found in her bed with a broken jaw among her other injuries. That was Nina's sister, Annie.
Hmm.
So he's just basically on a rampage.
Yeah.
Um, there was a lot of good sources that I had listened to, and I remember the man mentioned dark poutine or dark poutine. They had pointed out that ironically, this day that this happened was when his original appeal for the Glenn Dennings murder was actually scheduled,
Oh,
but
okay.
he wasn't there because he was on the lam. He's not a good
Yeah.
guy. So, like, they tried this new angle, right? There was a surviving victim, Nina Flam. They had played her tapes of some men's voices, including Alan's, but she was unable to confirm the perpetrator's voice.
Oh, okay.
Some cops thought it might not be Legere, but most of them were convinced it actually still was him.
Yeah, it seems pretty
Like, it's just,
similar.
there wasn't a lot. Yeah, exactly. Everyone was like, the MO is like exactly the same. You're
Yeah.
right. Thank you. And yeah, but and just not something they were used to at all. It's like a quiet, you know what I mean, kind of
Yeah.
region. Um, the fire investigation team that came out, they determined the fire was set basically to cover the crime. They were able to retrieve DNA samples in the form of hair and semen. But at this time, however, DNA testing was still quite new to criminal investigations, and the first Canadian testing facility was not actually open at this
Oh,
time.
okay.
At this point, the RCMP took over and noticed the similarities between the cases that they had been investigating. Like you said, like they're like
Grocery
grocery
store,
store,
asking about a safe,
a lot
raped,
of violence.
beaten.
There's just, I think there's a, yeah, Sherlock would be all
Yeah.
over that. So was yeah, he was still the prime suspect, obviously. On June 2nd, a pair of glasses that were identical to the ones Legier had been known to have been wearing when he had escaped were found by a contractor in Chatham on like a landscaping property. Or sorry, they were found at a site he was landscaping, not far from a home where a burglar had recently been chased away. So he wasn't laying completely low. He was being noticed a little bit,
Yeah.
I would say, if not outright identified. Um, Crime Stoppers, which most Canadians are familiar with, it's just like they're going to offer a reward if you have any
Yeah.
information, right? So they offered a reward of $2,000, yeah, for any tips leading to his arrest, basically. So tips were pouring in, but we're kind of all over the place. People claim to have seen him in Fredericton, New Brunswick, or even as far away as Toronto, Ontario. So sometimes it kind of almost like hinders the case as much as
Yeah.
helps it,
I
almost
was listening,
can
there was
be.
something on Netflix. What is it? The
Hmm.
Innocent Project, I think it is. They have a series that's pretty interesting, and
Yeah.
one of the things they talked about was the fact that when police release information asking for the public's help or if you've seen this person, once you've seen that picture, your mind like actually pretty much invents similarities between other people you've seen and that person, and it more often than not leads to like hundreds or if not thousands of false sightings. Whereas if they didn't say anything, like
Totally.
they could have like possible leads. Like more often than not, it actually hinders an
Yeah.
investigation.
And like it's not the witness's fault either.
No.
I remember just watching Brain Games and yeah, they did that thing where they like show people playing basketball, and they're like, count how many times someone passes the ball, and then afterwards they're like literally, I saw this in Brain Games. I don't know if it's somewhere else, and they're like, did you see the gorilla? And you're like, what gorilla? If you weren't paying attention, and then otherwise, if you maybe you've seen it before or something, you're like, yeah, when you're trying to count the passes, somebody like was dressed in a gorilla suit and came out, and like just nobody else noticed it because you're trained or trying to look for another thing specifically. So you're like basically almost putting blinders onto everything else. Like, oh,
But they actually have a
no, that's
name
okay.
for
I'm
it
just
about like what
gonna make sure I
happens
have
to
the
the
reason.
public when you like ask for help and then they start sending information and it's like an actual known like pretty much like mental disorder that people end up developing. It's like over helpfulness or something, but it has like an actual name.
So after the second murder of the shopkeepers, the police were highlighting Legier. They were like, okay, he's pretty
Mm.
prime suspect. Uh, did I say how a pair of glasses that looked like his were found on a landscaping
Yeah.
site in Chatham? Because that happened. Oh yeah, police thought he was still in the Miramichi. In September, 30th of September in Newcastle, New Brunswick, a man named Morrissey Doran, age 70, confronted an intruder in his home. He was shot in the back but by this intruder, but he did survive,
Yeah, that's good.
surprisingly,
Shot in the
because
back is
that's
brutal.
insane. Yeah, and he was 70. Yeah. I think it was some sort of a rifle too, like a
Wow.
buckshot or something, which I don't know.
Yeah,
It wasn't
no.
great. It could have been way
Definitely walking
worse.
away with serious injuries.
Exactly. Yeah, this guy is just like
Yeah.
bad news. He attacked another senior couple in Newcastle. They were assaulted by an armed man on October 12th. Or sorry, that was the next day after this guy was shot in the back, the 70-year-old. That was September 30th. So on October 12th, they threw out Legier's plea deal because he wasn't even there to hold up his appeal. He was on the
Yeah.
lam still.
Adding more things.
On October 14th, you can't try him, but we're still
Yeah.
trying to get him. Don't worry. hmm All right. On October 14th at 7:35 a.m., a volunteer firefighter in Newcastle noticed smoke was coming from a home nearby to his residence. This was the home of sisters Linda and Donna Daphne. They were 41 and 45 years old. They had lived on a dark, unlit kind of corner of the street in a town called Newcastle, New Brunswick. I think I said that, sorry. There were no street lamps on the street in this corner, so it
Oh,
was
okay.
really dark. Alan was lying in wait in the backyard. Linda was walking home from like meeting up with her friend for coffee, right? Kind of in the evening, but still, like she'd just been out with a friend. But he was lying in wait in her backyard. So her friend leaves her at the beginning of Linda's street. Legier sneaks up on her from behind in the backyard, or comes up to her in the driveway, probably, sorry, and clocks her right in the face. Legier ended up ripping out Linda's earring in the attack. He was that violent. She struggled, but he horribly beat her until a vessel ended up rupturing in her brain. He dragged her inside, he threw her on the bed, slashed at her throat, and stabbed her repeatedly, and both her jaws ended up broken.
Wow.
Honestly, the both the figures were both so kind of brutalized, unfortunately, that I wouldn't be surprised if I got a little confused about one injuries to the other because they were both kind of
Yeah.
horribly attacked, unfortunately. You know what I mean? When you read a couple different accounts and it's like, okay, this happened to this one and this happened to this one. It's just not good
Yeah.
either way. And yeah, I mean that's not the point of their lives kind of thing to me. It's just like, oh,
Yeah, for sure.
sucks. Um, oh, it's bad. So Donna was also tortured and vomited and choked to death. So Legier lit a fire in the house to cover his tracks and try to destroy the evidence. A witness was later have said to have seen a man jumping up and down, trying to kind of keep warm near the Dauphine's house. They didn't notice a fire at this time that they saw the man. Legier then went back inside to light the house more on fire. It wasn't burning enough for him. He lit like 5 more fires, and it was actually the smoke inhalation that killed Linda
That's
at that
terrible.
time. So it's so bad. Both women's bodies were recovered from the home. Like Donna was tucked kind of neatly into her bed, which was one of the more gross aspects of the entire case, I thought, like just tucking a
Yeah, like,
victim into bed.
yeah. Oh, that's weird.
And yeah, I mean, they're all beaten and raped too, don't get me wrong. That sucks. But he's just like a few different accounts I heard that I thought they heard that he had tucked a few different victims like into bed. And it was just like, no.
Yeah, that seems like a really weird thing to do.
Uh, it is. It's kind of, I don't know, like the killers that are obsessed with their moms and do weird shit like fuck their mom's head.
Ed Kemper. Yeah, those who don't know Edmund Kemper,
Exactly.
if you have a strong stomach, you
We
can
will
look him
cover
up.
him.
He's, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating serial killers out there. Like, according to reports, he's like has a genius level IQ. He's been so psychoanalyzed from such a young age that he actually, while in prison currently, assists other doctors in analyzing other patients. Like, that's how smart he is. He's trusted with this. Um, and he's also,
Oh, I can't believe he's still alive. I keep forgetting that because of the
yeah.
TV shows and stuff. You'd
And
think he was
actually, he's been
dead.
up for parole and recommended to be
Wow.
released many, many times. And every single one of those times that he's been up for release, he himself has been the one that has declined to allow himself to be released. So everybody around him keeps trying to free him. And he tells them pretty much flat out, if you release me, I'm just going to kill again to end up back here. I want to be here. I don't want to kill anybody else. So you have to keep me here. And he's,
I think I was just hearing too, he like called himself in the confession. Like if he hadn't have been like, I am the killer, they
yeah.
wouldn't have caught him.
So,
Is that
yeah,
not
what
what
happened
you've heard? Yeah,
he
it's just like
used to
Jesus
watch
Christ.
a cop procedural show. I can't remember what show it was. He was obsessed with it. He actually, when he was younger, he tried to become a cop, but they actually said that he was too tall. When in reality, it most likely was that he, a combination of that and not being able to pass a physical test, because he is on the heavier side because he just is so tall. I think he's close to like 7 feet tall. Like, he is extremely
Yeah.
tall. And he weighs like 280 pounds or
Could even
something.
be this.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he committed all these.
Yeah. Very tall. Like the
Yeah.
actor is very
He
tall.
he
Yeah.
committed all these crimes and everything. And the last one that he did, he pretty much went on the run. And each city and town that he passed through, he kept looking in his rearview mirror, like waiting for somebody to be behind him. And because he had wanted to be a cop so badly, he had befriended a bunch of cops in a
Damn.
local bar, and he used to talk about cop business. He used to find out like who they were looking into for the crimes that he had committed, or if anybody had noticed. So he actually knew, like, personally a lot of cops. So
Yeah.
he kept thinking, okay, they're gonna figure it out. It's me. They're gonna figure it out. Somebody's got to figure it out. And when nobody did, he actually got frustrated that nobody was paying attention to him.
They
Yeah.
really
So he ended up going just on a payphone
Yeah.
and ended up confessing and being like, yo, like, I killed these people. I'm here.
What?
Come get me. because he didn't want to keep killing. He was tired of it.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like you can sometimes hit people over the head with a confession, but if it weren't for false confessions, then those ones would be
Hmm.
totally cut and dry and really easy to take. But there's all these like false confessions and all these different things that muddy the waters, and it's just
See,
like
the
Jesus,
interesting thing about him
that's
is
really
he's
crazy.
actually has been interviewed many times from prison. There's actually whole documentaries you can watch on YouTube, interviews with him. He
Mm.
literally sits there and just describes like he's describing the plot of a movie to you.
They played on the podcast I was listening to, and I was like, that sounds like
Yeah.
him from Mindhunter. I was like, the actor did a really good
Yeah. What they
job.
did is he
Yeah.
pretty much like
Yeah, I was really
sat
impressed
there and like mirror
by the actor.
imaged like the interviews that they completed with him and pretty much like got because he does speak like he's like a
Oh
doctor
yeah.
talking about something. Like he's very analytical. He talks about something as if it didn't happen to him personally, as if he's completely detached
True.
from it. But in this, he's talking about like cutting off his mom's head and
Very,
like fucking her neck hole and
yeah.
stuff. And because his mom had been complaining that because of him, she wasn't having sex with anybody. So he murdered his mom and then cut off her head and had sex with her
Ugh.
head. And then said, okay, now you've had sex. So, and he's explaining this as he's like sitting there telling you
Right.
about a comedy movie. He's just sitting there like detached from it, like emotionless.
And that is insane. You're right. I've heard some of the audio clips, and you're just like, oh, you do talk about it like it's a movie, where most of us are desensitized because we've seen a movie,
Yeah,
not
like
because it's
he sits
about
there and
us.
he's
Like
like,
he's
yeah, if I
literally
was
a
to
psychopath.
analyze somebody that committed these crimes, I would tell you that they're this, and this. He's not telling you I'm this, and this. He's telling you if somebody committed these crimes, they would be this, and this.
Oh,
Like, but he's fascinating. He loves to talk about these crimes. He doesn't do interviews anymore, but when he was getting interviewed, he got interviewed by um uh the criminal justice unit of the FBI that actually coined the term serial killer. Um, so, like, if you've watched Mindhunters, you know all this. He gets
mhm.
interviewed in that. He's actually one of the main ones that starts this whole thing about them being interviewed. He also,
Like
yeah, he also was in
yeah.
the same facility that Charles Manson was in. And when they went there, before they went to interview Charles Manson, they went and stopped by to visit Edmund and asked, "Oh, do you know anything about Charles we should stay away from?" Or and he pretty much just said, "Don't make fun of his height." That's all he really had to say. That he was a short dude and don't make fun of it. Yeah, yeah,
Oh. Oh, I've heard some creepy things about him. I can talk
yeah,
about him on a different
yeah. I'm sure
episode.
we'll do a whole
Oh, he has some big
we'll do an episode about
mm,
Edmund Kemper for sure,
deep dive.
because I could talk about him for hours. It's crazy.
Right. Okay. So yeah, set of second set of grocery store owners that have been attacked by this year. Yes. The RCMP that came to investigate said they could see the 10 fingerprints, like bloody fingerprints being dragged down the walls. You could see them sliding down the back of the door. Uh, so Vincent Poissonnier of Moncton RCMP said the place looked like it had been ransacked, as if Leger was not looking for something to steal, but more to do with being mad, being upset, being totally out of control. So, yeah, he thought it was kind of like a
Yeah, okay.
blood rage at this point. Excuse me. Um, Everyone's kind of terrified. More officers are called in after these murders, including the emergency response team from Ottawa. Yeah, people are terrified. There's never been anything like this before that they know of, and people were used to being able to like not lock their doors, not anymore, so they're just freaking out. The police and the RCMP combed the riverside up and down the Mirror Machine, They knew he hadn't actually gone far from his um where he
Okay.
grew up, I guess. Kind of weird. Because you'd think he could just,
Yeah.
disappear off to somewhere else, but he never chose to. He just didn't. Halloween was actually canceled that year. I think that's the first year
Yeah, it was
before like
canceled for a
COVID,
second time because of
anything would
COVID.
actually make that happen. I think it was. I do think, but although they were, yeah, I went to visit my mom in the Atlantic bubble of the East Coast Canada during the COVID, and they were like pretty staunch, like pretty stringent. Well, who are you? Where are you
Yeah.
from? How? Oh yeah, yeah. Stay in your house. It's like, yeah, I'm social distancing. I'm not even near you. I'm wearing a mask. I'm whatever. I'm staying with my mom like 24/7, and they were still like, uh-huh. Like, okay. Okay. So, Halloween was canceled. In early fall of that year, the RCMP lab for DNA analysis finally opened in Ottawa. Legier's hair was actually tested amongst some of the first samples to be processed. It matched semen samples from both Nina Flam and Linda Daphne. So they then at least knew he was
Yeah.
responsible for those killings. But he still wasn't caught. So the terror reaches a tipping point when the next death occurs. People are turning naturally to their communities and kind of to their faith to carry them through this difficult time. Parishioners turn to their clergy for comfort. Every Sunday, Father James Smith provides such comfort to his flock. He is very much a well-loved, kind-hearted pillar of the community. He's literally a father figure to the young kids,
Mhm.
not just a father. On November 16th, his congregation was gathered for the regular 7 p.m. Mass. But by 7:15, Father Smith was still nowhere to be found. They grew worried, so two parishioners went over to the nearby rectory to check on him. What they saw would haunt them for the rest of
Dun
their
dun
lives.
dun.
There was blood everywhere, signs of struggle. Dun dun dun. I know. I don't know how to pause. How do we do that? Um, oh, it's
Yeah.
just shitty though. I don't even know why. I can't imagine why this one
Because he
had to
just
happen.
sucks.
Father Smith's main in life.
Because he sucks.
What's that?
Alan Legier sucks. Not the.
Yeah, I know. Like, there's a quite a direct like drugs or something, but I'm not even sure with this guy. Um, so they found Father Smith's body, unfortunately, lying in a bloody heap near a wall safe of his. So earlier that day, Father Smith had heard a noise in his home and he'd gone to investigate. There was a ladder up against the building of the house, so he went down to investigate and saw a door open in the rectory. As soon as he entered the rectory, Legier then attacked him. He demanded for Father Smith to show him to the safe. When Smith insisted there was no money, the knife came out. He slashed, punched, and kicked him as he tied the man up to a chair. He slashed his face, he untied him, strangled the priest, and ultimately the man then
Ugh,
choked on
gross.
his own vomit. He at one point must have jumped on Father Smith's body because he had broken ribs and boot prints on him. It's just kind of not fathomable almost. It doesn't matter what religion you are, like how
Yeah.
can you be that depraved? I don't know. Um, at this point, Alan hung out. He snacked on some shit in the fridge. He put some bread bags on his wet feet. You know how you do when you got the wet
Yeah.
shoes sometimes in Canada? I, I get it. I understood it, but
Yeah.
I didn't like him still. He even answered the phone at one point when someone called and he answered like wrong number. At 6 p.m., they are actually giving the press conference about the slayings in New Brunswick. At 6:45, Legier hotwires the priest's car and heads to a train station. So after he killed Father Smith, he took his car. So at 7:45, a Via Rail agent sells a ticket to Montreal to a suspicious character who wouldn't look him in the face or the eyes. But he bought the ticket. So panic is kind of reaching a ratcheting point in New Brunswick, especially in the Miramichi region. So kids weren't allowed to play like in the streets on their like in their yard. Everyone was just kind of like, no,
Yeah.
don't go to the house if you can avoid it. On no, yeah, it's not good. On November 17th, my brother's birthday, no, 1989. At 2:25 a.m. in Rivière-du-Loup, Quebec, not far from the border to New Brunswick, the plainclothes officers caught up with the train to Montreal. So they boarded the train to search for Legier. So they had heard about the suspicious character buying, the
That's good.
ticket that wouldn't look them in the eye. So they're on the case. They have a basic description. Passenger 30 matched the description rather the best. Although he didn't look to be the 200 pounds they thought, Legier was supposed to be at the time of his escape. They were also looking for a tattoo of a star and an eagle head on his right forearm and an eagle on his right bicep. So they asked the passenger on the train to roll up his right sleeve, and he didn't have any tattoos on them. So they let the train go. There had actually been a mistake. No.
Yeah. They
You want to
checked the
know?
wrong arm, I assume.
Yeah. He was supposed to have a tattoo on his left arm that they were looking for.
That's why you check both.
Exactly. It seems like a movie.
A person's got two arms. If you're looking for a tattoo on an arm, check their arms, check their legs.
Doesn't that seem the most prudent course
you're
of
not
action?
looking for somebody
To
that
me, it does. Is that the guy? Oh,
yeah, you're not looking for somebody that stole $5. Like, this dude's out there raping and murdering people. Like, take the effort. Check both arms.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No, they seem to have no concept of like trying to find them. So they let the train go. In Montreal, he used a fake name still, and he checked into the Queen Elizabeth Hotel. He later ordered new glasses because his, were old or whatever, and he sold some jewelry that he had stolen, like to a pawn shop. So he was doing all right for a while, I think, in Quebec. But 1 week later, on November 23rd in St. John, a cab driver named Ron Gomke noticed a man was flagging him down. The guy said, like, I missed my train. I need to ride to Moncton. Rob calls dispatch to get the fare. It's going to be like a long distance thing. Sounds like it's going to be about $100. Ron then hears the man say, tell them you have the money, you're going to Moncton, and he sticks a rifle in Rob's ribs. He says, don't try anything, I'll shoot at the first sign of police. Ron contemplates crashing into a transport truck. He knows exactly who he must be dealing with. Ron must make some indication of his thought, but they eventually end up fighting for control of the wheel. This puts them into a ditch, but they are unharmed. So Legier is then furious with Ron. He threatens to kill Ron, but ultimately ends up flagging down another driver in an SUV. Unbeknownst to Legier, it belongs to off-duty RCMP officer Michelle Mercer. He orders her to take them to Moncton, but they realize they will need to fuel up first.
Yeah.
Gotta get
Hold
some
on, I need
gas.
some Red Bull and I need some chips, maybe some sunflower seeds, road trip food.
Oh, what about some all dressed kids? Oh, so yummy.
Yeah.
Uh, they gotta fuel up. So they stop at an urban gas station. He takes the keys out of the ignition, he pumps the gas, and he heads in to actually pay for the gas, which I found astonishing. When
Oh,
you
wow.
have to
Considering he's
pump and
like
pay.
asking people for money and robbing people, and
Yeah.
then he is gonna pay for gas.
I mean, he's got his own set of codes.
Yeah, he's courteous only in the situation of going on a road trip with somebody.
He is the Hound. What is it the Hound on Game of Thrones does? Because he'll kill people, but he sure as shit won't like steal from them or something. I can't remember exactly.
I don't remember either.
I'll have all your chickens. No.
Yeah.
So Alan Lashir goes in to pay. Michelle, the RCMP officer, reveals to Ron that she has a second set of keys for her SUV, for her vehicle. They decide this
Good
might
for her.
be a chance. Then they take off. Yeah. They're like, we're doing it. So Legier is obliged to flag down yet another vehicle if he wants to get anywhere. He's pissed. But this time he flags down like 18-wheel moving truck is my understanding. So like tractor
Like
trailer,
a semi.
like a semi truck. Yeah, someone said like okay, like a moving van, and then on whatever podcast I was listening to, like no, like it's not like a van. It's like a giant.
Yeah, like a semi trailer.
Yeah, like he tells the next thing he does is tells the driver to ditch the tractor trailer. Like get rid of the trailer. We just like we're too big. Now he
We'll
thinks
flag down a different vehicle.
a
You
smart
flag down that vehicle.
was there smart cars in 1989?
No.
Anyway. They end up down a small lane. The trucker says, or sorry, whoop, 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 whoop. There was plenty of witnesses that saw the hijacking of the tractor trailer. So the police were ready to spring, and the tractor or the truck was spotted lumbering down a two-lane country road. Someone called it in as suspicious. The RCMP was able to get on their tail. Slow chase ensues.
Yeah.
I don't know. They end up down like a small lane. The trucker's like, I can't go any further. There's nothing I can do. There's no room. So Lucier is like, okay, get out, get out. So he gets out of the cab. He yells, it's him. It's Alan Legier. He's got a gun. Police surround the truck. They're armed to the teeth. One had an M16. I know it's a cool gun because Pat said it's his favorite, and he was in the army.
Yeah.
But, armed to the teeth for Canadian police, let me tell you. And Alan just comes
Yeah.
to the truck and says, he's got his hands in the air. He's saying, I'm all right. I'm okay. You got me. I'm,
Okay.
I'm all right. Just in case you guys were wondering.
Just in case you cared. You guys all pointing guns at me. Just in case you cared, I'm okay.
He throws the gun on the ground away from him, and he's apprehended with no further violence. Once he's brought to trial, Alan's arguments included, you guys have had a year to learn about this DNA stuff. My lawyer has not. It's not fair.
Oh my god.
DNA.
This fang-fangled DNA. It's ruining my fun and I don't like it.
Fangled.
Yeah. This newfangled DNA.
But it was a little confusing because when I first read it, I thought they said he was like the first example of a conviction at this point, but he was one of the first, is what I've decided from what I've read.
Oh, okay, like using DNA evidence. He was one of the first convictions in Canada.
Yeah, it said that DNA in, 1989 at this point hadn't been used to convict, but had been used to exonerate innocent people. But then I looked a
Oh,
little
okay.
further because yeah, I was still a little confused after the various sources and I, read and listened to for the podcast. So I got a little bit of history if you want it.
Yeah.
OttawaCitizen.com, blah, blah, blah. It said the first forensic use of DNA occurred in England in 1983 when samples from a murder and sexual assault exonerated the main suspect in the case. 3 years later, DNA from a second murder was crimes and convict a different man. In Canada, DNA was first used in 1987, so that would have been 2 years before the capture of
Yeah.
Legier. Yeah, in the case of the spandex rapist, quote unquote, who had attacked 7 women in Edmonton.
The spandex race? Oh, that sounds so gross. And it's in Edmonton too. Oh my God. I don't even want to
Sounds like
look
we
this
may have
up.
to cover that.
Ew. I don't want to talk exclusively about spandex. Oh.
Really, it could go really well with the. Have you ever heard of the Lululemon murders?
I was just gonna say spandex makes me think of Lululemon.
That's fucked up too.
Or you do the guy that um did the Dexter killings or whatever in Edmonton. I think you told reminded me about that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that one's like it is kind of like out of a TV show. Because
Yeah, he like murdered people in his garage.
yeah, he wishes he was in a TV show or a movie, and that's why he told people he was like in a movie. I'm just creating a movie. If you hear any
Yeah.
screaming, it's like, okay, buddy.
Just making the worst movie ever.
But I don't know anything about the spandex rapist. We'll have to, I guess, save that one. Sorry.
Yeah, we can cover that one.
But that was the first time DNA was used in 1987. However, the sample available for testing proved too small to give a viable result or a reliable result, and the suspect was acquitted. Although it says the man was convicted 20 years later when DNA linked him to a separate sexual assault. Oh, a sexual assault cold case in Calgary. I'm sorry, there was a lot of C's in the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
I guess according to this site, the first conviction in Canada occurred in Ottawa in 1989 when 32-year-old Paul McNally pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a 68-year-old woman in her New Edinburgh home. And they used genetic fingerprinting. So yeah, that was what I found out. I was like, so although Wikipedia says it's the first use of DNA profiling in Canada to lead to a conviction, it's among the first in Canada. Basically,
Maybe for a conviction because the other you said that spandex guy was acquitted
he
because it
was.
wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
So
But then
that might be why. Because maybe some people were like convicted of these, but they were later acquitted. But he was the first one that was like convicted and stayed convicted.
I think so, like hard
Yeah.
convicted, because
Yeah.
something about the 1989 case, 68-year-old woman. I think that was maybe one of the very first in Canada, but as I noted, technically the DNA in the Alan Legier case from New Brunswick was collected before the Ottawa case, but he was on the run for so long that
Yeah.
used before, like his trial was in 1990, and this one
Mhm.
conviction was 89, so it was very close. So yeah, obviously he was convicted 19, or sorry, his trial was in 1990. Yeah, he was convicted in 1991. Life without the possibility of parole until 25 years, or however you say that. In 2015, he was moved from New Brunswick to the Edmonton maximum security prison.
Oh God, no, don't tell me that.
Yeah, so people were scared because he got moved here and they thought he was gonna fuck us all up in Edmonton.
Tell me he's dead.
He is 70, like 3, and he's just been denied parole again in January of 2021. He gave rambling
Good.
answers in his parole interview. When asked if he considers himself violent or a sexual offender, he said no. A
Of
board member
course not.
asked this year if he takes responsibility for causing the deaths of the 4 victims slain when he was a fugitive. I was present, but I wasn't the only one, he said. I was found guilty, but they don't have it right. He blames an accomplice.
Sure. An accomplice like fellow road tripper that followed you through to Montreal.
The devil on his shoulder.
Yeah.
An addendum to that article about his parole hearing here just recently, when asked about his sexual violence tendencies, Legier said female prison employees aren't afraid of him. I'm not like that, he said. Agar said that contrary to what Legier was saying, there have been issues with female staff, including his fixation on some staff to whom he sent poetry and handmade cards.
Ugh.
It seems you do have
Gross.
issues, she said. And that's my case.
I love it.
So the next, I'm very excited for too, because we're going to go ahead with our next one. Our episode is going to be about cursed objects.
Yeah. So, like we said before, we're going back and forth. So, true crimes every second episode.
True crime, we do love our true crime, and we love our
Yeah.
mysterious and supernatural and paranormal. And we're also working on our Patreon. We'll let you know if there's an actual date or anything like that.
Yeah, we have a placeholder. We're thinking about putting up a poll maybe to see what kind of content people are interested in,
Yeah,
so that we can figure out what we want to do for that.
yeah, we want to do what you guys want to see.
Yeah. So let us know.
I'm excited for you, cursed. But
Yeah. You're
time.
cursed.
Oh, castles encrypted.
You've been cursed.
You
Bye.
All right, till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.